Welcome to Good Old Fashioned Dialogue. This is the first of our podcasts where we are going to be meeting with some very interesting people, some people who have a lot to say. The Good Old Fashioned Dialogue podcast is about coming together and having discussions, free, open conversation. Hi, Rob, are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Pleasure to be
Can,
here.
can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Brilliant, wonderful. I was just giving a bit of a background. As I've said, my name's Nadine. I'm really just here to just have a really good exchange of information and wisdom with you and to let everybody know a bit about you because you've done a few podcasts, haven't you? Is this your fourth or fifth or how many have you done?
I think this is the fifth or sixth. I don't try to focus too much on the numbers and more focus on the enjoyment of it and good communication.
Brilliant. I love it. Well, exactly the same here. And I'm going to say the word honored that you were the first person that I've initiated these dialogues with because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot being said, but I really like the idea of just bringing it back to just some good old fashioned conversation, some, just again, just sharing wisdom and just talking about things that mean something, bringing value. And it's not to say that others don't have value because everybody can bring value. But I feel that what you've said and what you bring to light in all of the discussions, I think I've listened to two so far, is really what people need to be hearing, hence why I called this podcast Light in Our Darkness. So just again, just a little bit about me. I've been a holistic beauty therapist for almost 10 years now, and I've always felt this need to speak to people in my day job when I'm doing treatments, etc. I'm always having a conversation. I'm always finding out about people, and so to be able to bring it on this platform with the likes of yourself is like pretty much a dream come true. I'm based in the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, and yeah, I just love the fact that it's a bit like having a pen pal, just learn a little bit about where you come from. Is it Camden, is that right, in New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm about 15 miles outside of Camden, which is, I think, roughly 28 kilometers. If
Wow.
if
So
my if my math is right, my conversion is right.
got you. So what is Camden like? Like, what is it like to live in New Jersey?
Expensive. New Jersey tax wise, I think we're like fourth in America for property tax and other forms of taxes. And
Wow.
Camden's a lot better of a city than it used to be, but at one point in time, it was the most dangerous city in the country.
My goodness. So would you say, is it like, what's the population like?
Are you asking like diversity or opinion or
Like numbers wise, is it quite a small place or is it quite well known on the map?
as of 2021, Camden has a population of 71,773.
Wowzers. Okay, so that is a grand scale then. So with you, do you like, hopping on a, I don't know, on a coach or on a train and getting out of there, or have you pretty much just stayed local? What's it like for you traveling around the US?
I've pretty much stayed local. It's expensive to travel,
Hmm.
and the US is at such a scale that, like, for me, I recently went to New York for an anime convention.
Hmm.
It was an hour and 45-minute drive one way. I had a friend who lived in Reading over there for years
Okay.
and years, and his family vacations would be to Scotland every year. And we invited him to come over here. If he got his plane ticket, we'd handle all the accommodations. I'd pick him up at the airport for the anime convention.
Hmm.
And he was astounded that in the time it takes his family to go from Reading to Scotland, I'm still in the same state.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Reading to Scotland again is a good few hours, and that's why you can see it as a holiday because it is literally north and south. I don't think I've driven through Reading, but yeah, it's. I think here it should just be about improving the motorways to get from A to B on a good day. However, when it's sunshine and in the summer may not be too bad, but I definitely would love to see the other side of the world and learn more because just like interesting, people like yourself, there is so much to learn. I always say to everyone, travel as much as you can. I highly recommend it. But I've digressed already. So that's probably what you'll find me doing a lot is because
That's
I just
fine.
love
Hey,
to.
you can find value in anything. It's all about how you connect with it. Some people, maybe they're introverted, maybe they love their community, they're not really interested in traveling.
Hmm.
But in just hearing the difference of his family vacation is once a year, this is our super long distance trip is an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's still in my home state. Like, I've
Yeah.
thought about taking an hour and 45-minute drive to go to the mall just to go
That's
and do
nuts.
shopping. I have
That's
some
crazy.
family that lives in Tennessee that is a 8.5 hour drive one way.
My goodness. And so is that why so many of Americans take like domestic flights? So they just prefer to fly to
Yes.
get from A to B? Yeah. Yeah, that
Yes.
makes
It's
sense.
it's worth noting and trying to remember the saying that in America, 100 miles, 100 years is a long time. In Europe, 100 miles is a far distance.
I like that. I like that. It's very, very true. I mean, the good thing, I guess, about, so I could take a few hours to get to the capital, but I could also take a couple of hours to get to France, to get to Portugal. So it has its pros and cons, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if you've had a look recently on my page. You are at 2.5 million views. I mean, my mind is completely blown. So all those eyes in America, because I think on my analytics it said it's largely people from the US are all focusing on what you have to say. You know, you spoke a universal language, which is wisdom. Everybody heard you loud and clear. And I'll tell you something, Robert, that I really loved about what it was is that you were so unassuming in what you said. And when I listened to, I believe it was your Flow with Joe podcast, where you said, you know, I didn't really think much of it at the time, and then it just kind of blew up because it just shows that you appear to just have this expansive amount of knowledge. But to paint the picture, because somebody might be listening to this podcast and have no clue what I'm talking about, so you know CG3 before that discussion happened?
No, and that clip wasn't even the purpose of why he approached me. If anybody else looks at CG3's content, it's a lot of the normal, I don't want to say normal, but your average social media entertainment stuff. You know, can you finish these lyrics? Don't talk, everything you see trending.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
he was trying to do that with me, but it was Memorial Day weekend, so big holiday weekend in the States. You know, barbecues, nice weather, everybody's trying to get shopping done last minute. I was in the mall to get sunglasses and a ball cap because I had a fishing trip the next day. So I was just another person in the crowd. He approached and said, "Hey, could I do an interview with you real quick for my Instagram?" And in my head, I'm like, it's some dude at the mall. He might have 300 followers, but I'm not doing anything. Yeah, sure, not a problem. We did 8 or 9 takes, and people just kept walking into the shot. So, you know, it would shut down for a minute, and then we'd try it again, and it would shut down for a minute. And he just started getting kind of irritated. And I know from experience that I don't want to go through my day being irritated, especially not when it's something that's kind of nonsensical.
Yes, and that's one of the greatest things about, because you see, the thing is, what you said, never attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence. And you also clarified to say you actually meant to say ignorance, because incompetence would mean, you know, like a lack of knowledge, whereas ignorance is just more of just a lack of awareness, which is entirely what you were referring to. And what I realized when you said that is it was so applicable to everything, any conflict, any discussion. It's not that people are deliberately, you know, walking in front because they don't care or they're not bothered. They just didn't know. So this is the reason why, you know, I wanted to talk to you about it so much, because in one of the podcasts you talked about working in McDonald's and kind of watching how the days progress, watching how customers behave and interact and get frustrated. Was that literally where you started to adopt this kind of mindset of just not taking it too seriously, not getting upset by other people's lack of awareness?
It's where I started to really apply it. I used to be, and still kind of am, a very, very cynical person that the world isn't your friend and people are out to hold you down. And it's not because they're trying to hold you down, it's only because they're trying to lift themselves up. I used to be a really almost hateful person. I went about my day angry and upset, and you don't deserve this, and I didn't like that about myself, but I didn't know how to change it either.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about, well, why does this upset me?
Mhm.
And anytime that I couldn't come up with an answer as to why something was bothering me, I'd be like, so why am I letting it? Like, if I can't figure out what's wrong and I'm coming up with not the absence of a reason, but no reason, why am I
Jesus.
worrying about it? So I would just start letting go of things. Maybe I'd be in class and somebody would be like, yo, put your hand down. You're not allowed to talk anymore. All right, whatever. They're tired of hearing me speak. And I just grew from there. And with McDonald's, when people would be upset because their McChicken is missing, they're not upset at you. A McChicken is $1 sandwich. They're really, really not that upset about it. It's everything else that was going on, and this finally just pushed them over that edge. And that's a lot easier to understand that they were already having a bad day, something else already upset them, and this was just the last straw, you know? They were like, all right, I'm going to get this, I'm going to treat myself, I love my McChickens, I'm going to go home, have my McDonald's, watch Family Guy, and then the sandwich is gone.
And it just sends you over the edge. Yes, absolutely. So you mentioned about being quite cynical. Where did that come from? Do you think, did you recognize that in high school? Did you recognize that when you started working? Where do you think that kind of that
Um,
personality trait came from?
so I'm 27.
Mhm.
So I really started like becoming aware of the world shortly after 9/11. Then we had the '08 financial crisis. So my entire adult life has been in a repetitive once in a lifetime crises, be it
Wow.
climate change or housing, whatever. And I've seen, people with college degrees that were promised doesn't matter what you have a degree in, you'll get a job. Now they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're working at Wawa because there's only so many jobs to go around. So really that cynicism came from watching the system actively fail everybody it was meant to protect. People going
Yeah.
out from their jobs on medical leave and being fired from it, and then having to get a lawyer because all they're asking for is their job back, and the system didn't care.
When you consider it in that perspective, I think even more so since post CB-19, again, you're going to have that generation of just waking up one day and everything being different, everything, and there being no real explanation given as to what's going on. And you turn on the news and it's just wave and wave of this bad thing is happening, this bad thing is happening. So, when you put it like that, I mean, I think I've kind of felt like every decade, it's there's always been something going on. And I feel kind of blessed that I was born in the 80s because I don't really remember. Obviously, probably because the only thing you had was a TV with 3 channels. The exposure that I had to it as a child growing up was extremely small, whereas now everything is everywhere. You just open your phone and your phone's always with you. And so I do feel for this generation in a way in which unless they're going to be quite resilient and just not have a phone at all, not be on anything, it's hard to kind of realize what's going on. But I feel like when people like yourself who can relate to, I mean, I don't know the age bracket of people that have been, looking at the post, but you must have covered just such a wide, broad scale of people because, everybody kind of, if they applied that type of, attitude, I just think that conflict between people would be so much less. Because a lot of people, for example, I went to a fast food place and the young lady that was serving me was on the phone to her, I think it was her bank, and she was visibly upset and she came back to serve me whatever. Now obviously the first part of etiquette is that you're not allowed to be on the phone when you're serving in a fast food place, but she was just really upset anyway. And then when she came back to me, she didn't say hi, she didn't say how can I help, she just kind of plonked out my food and then carried back on the phone and went round the back and left the complete counter empty. And initially, because I'm from the service industry myself, I was initially kind of like, I didn't really like that. But then when I went home, I just sat down and I prayed and I was just like, do you know what? That's got to be the hardest thing, that you're meant to be facing someone and friendly and kind, but you know that behind closed doors your bills aren't getting paid. And I think that was kind of a turning point for me when I realized that empathy is everything, compassion is absolutely everything. So stoicism was the phrase that came up a lot when people were kind of talking about what you had to say. And Hanlon's razor, Sonder, I think one of the first comments, which has like 12,000 likes now, was saying, this, my friend, is Sonder. So how did you happen across Hanlon's razor? Was it something that you read? How did you come into to know about it?
I honestly didn't know it had an actual name till after the CG3's original video came up.
Wow,
It
that's
was
crazy.
very much so. I mean, a good friend of mine who we affectionately called Hippie Mike. Very, very vegan, very vegetarian. Not like the negative stereotype that's the hippies. Just a very natural lifestyle. You don't need things, you need experiences. Things
Mhm.
won't bring you joy. You know, all these additives in your foods, you don't need it. I was working at McDonald's and I thought I recognized somebody's voice, and I looked up and Hippie Mike's in the drive-thru. I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, what happened?" Well, what had happened is his dad was in the ICU. So his entire world came to a screeching halt, and he broke every rule he had because he had to eat, and we were the only thing open at the time. And that's a big part of, like, you don't know what these people have going on,
Mhm.
and it's not about you. Hippie Mike in the drive-thru, he said, "Listen, I'm sorry, like this isn't me." I said, "Don't worry about it. Your food's on me,"
Oh,
because I
wow.
knew him. I knew what he was going through. That $10 McDonald's order changed his night. It went from the worst night to things will be okay.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
just
crazy.
little experiences like that that made me really think, like, these people aren't trying to get in your way. They're not, the girl that was serving you, she wasn't trying to be rude to you. She didn't set out to ignore you. She was just so wrapped up in what may well have been an emergency in her own life
Mhm.
that it things didn't click the way they normally would.
Yeah,
And that's okay.
absolutely.
Things happen. Everybody has rough days. As far as the actual quote, I believe the original quote is that that which can be adequately explained by stupidity, and I hate that. I hate that because that
Yeah.
feels like you're trying to insult people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Incompetence refers to not being good or not being able to do something, which is why it didn't really fit in the original clip, because I'm implying that these people aren't capable of walking through an open space without being in the way,
Mhm.
which just isn't true. But sometimes, you're going after your first job, you get a job at McDonald's, and you find out you are not fit for customer service, but you still have bills to pay. That would be where incompetence comes into play. Ignorance is just as valid depending on the circumstance. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Is it more likely that they can't drive, or that they didn't know you were there, or that they were about to miss their turn?
Yeah.
And we all do things like that. And I think when you can really connect with, I get it. I get it. It's much easier to live your life with less stress, and you're not going to succeed at it all the time. I don't succeed at it all the time. There's sometimes that I'm driving and I'm stuck behind somebody doing 15 under the speed limit, and I'm sitting there behind the wheel like, just move, just move, just move, just move, just get out of my way. And then, maybe like they pull over and they're looking at their phone, and suddenly all that bubbling, simmering emotion I had, I'm like, oh, they're lost. Never mind. That's fine. Sometimes I'll pull over. Hey, I live around here. What are you looking for? Maybe I can help.
That's so good. That's so, and I think it was nice to see how you talked about previously about it being in real time. You literally did see in that clip where Charles, I believe his name is, his shoulders kind of dropped, and it was just kind of like, do you know what? You're absolutely right. And it makes sense that the clip keeps on circulating, because I believe when you say Memorial Day weekend, was that like almost 6 months ago, or quite, it was a good few months ago, is that right?
Yeah, 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah, so the fact that it is so relevant, and it is something that people want to talk to you about, because I feel that as much as it can be felt that we're going through, everything's dark, everything's terrible, I actually believe that more people are connecting with themselves. I believe that with what happened with the lockdowns, etc., it gave people to have that time to introspect. They weren't able to go to work, they weren't able to do that everyday thing, and they had to find ways to be creative. There were so many people that completely gave up their day jobs and started following their passions and their hobbies. So I totally feel that there is an awakening of, there's more to what's going on in the world than what we see, and there's a lot more to people than what we think. And if I just give people a couple of seconds of my time, I realize that they could actually be my friend. They could be someone I could talk to, go for a beer with. So, with regards to yourself, and I came across the fact that you're a gamer. My partner also is a gamer, and he's one of the things that he said to me was Metal Gear Solid. He said that there's a lot of things that happened that he feels that was predicted in that game, and things that kind of started to make sense, like present day happenings. Do you feel that your gaming experience kind of gives you that ability to see things from a different perspective as well, or is it? What's your thoughts?
It's really about the way you approach things. So A good example is League of Legends. People that play League of Legends all the time and like really understand the game, a lot of people will tell you it's a fast-paced game about killing the opponent.
Hmm.
League of Legends is not. League of Legends is a game about properly managing your resources in real time. So when you're doing that at a higher level, you're able to try to look at everything, including things you can't actually see going on at once. So that helps you be aware of your surroundings. It doesn't translate one to the real world, but you look at things differently. You go, all right, well, I can take a loss here because it means that I'll be ahead later. And if you play story driven games, you might be able to see a narrative. You might be able to connect with somebody better. In high school, I actually had to do a research paper that I did the psychological and sociological effects of different genres of games. And
Hmm.
people have done all kinds of studies on how what you play can affect you.
Okay, what was your synopsis from your study? Is it something you could break down, or is it a much bigger discussion?
It really depends on like the individual games that you play. So if somebody plays a lot of Valorant or Counter Strike,
Hmm.
their their finger hand eye coordination, their reaction time for stuff like that is on par with professional athletes. You just don't think about it that way because it's a click instead of catching the ball. It
Hmm.
will take some practice to get those other things in. But if you look at the way they react and how fast they can react to things, it's up there with F1 drivers and baseball players and rugby players in the way that they can kind of know what's happening before it happens. A lot of puzzle game players tend to break things down into more steps to look at, all right, well, if this didn't work, I can do this, this, and this. The important part about it, though, is that in every genre, there was community. I think gaming is the drive-in movie theaters of today. There is a game out there for you, no matter what you like, no matter what you don't. There is a game for you. It exists. I might not know what it is, but it's out
Hmm.
there.
That's so
And
interesting.
the amount of effort that gets put into making the games is astronomical.
Yes, I've my sister is now I'm not even going to pretend that I know these games. So she's a huge role player, Warhammer, that type of thing. She makes the characters, she 3D prints them, but she also has been gaming. She's older than me, but she's been gaming ever since I could remember. But she was talking to me about, is it Red Dead Redemption, and about how it's about, like you said, that community, and that there's different factions, and you have, your people who are the good guys, the bad guys, and the way how she spoke about it, you almost got lost into thinking it was something that was every so often I'd have to say, but this is a game, right? Like, she was so into it, and she's someone who's quite introverted, so gaming is something which is her release. It's where, she's got a lot, a huge friendship community, and it gives her
So,
goals. Go for it.
if here's a question. You just said she has a huge community. I've played Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. They're primarily single player games, but they had a decent online following.
Hmm.
If she has this community and she has goals and ambitions around the games and she interacts with the community and she reaches out and she plays things, is she introverted?
Like, that's a really good question, because yeah, you know what it is, when she talks about her online community, it is as if they're just there. But I guess it's finding your community and finding like-minded people, finding people that enjoy what you enjoy, and that you can talk to them all day long about the things that you enjoy. So yeah, that kind of does lead me back to the drawing board on that one, because she's when it comes to her games, no, she's not she's not an introvert at all, but she's definitely found her crowd with that game, and that makes me very happy for her, because I feel everybody, should have that, should have something that they can put their passions into. So, going on to your biggest lesson and most enlightening moment, if any, because it doesn't have to be that deep, but what's enlightened you the most since going viral? What's kind of touched you, or made you really, take a step back and think about it, if at all?
It's gonna sound really silly, but the fact that it went viral at all, I'm still borderline confused over. Because I've been using that as the rule for how I live my life for more than a decade. Why did it suddenly become something worth saying?
Hmm.
And And it's not that I know it's not that it suddenly did. It's just that it's never been captured the same way.
Yeah.
It's really at the core, it's the same message we've all always heard of treat people the way you want to be treated.
Hmm.
But different words and a different inflection and seeing it used in real time can make it connect with you completely separately. The second thing is just how realistic being a full time content creator is from a financial standpoint. Once it went viral and people started asking me for more content, I figured I should look into this. At the time, I was working 55, 60 hours a week.
I pray that you do, Robert. I absolutely. And one of the comments that I read just before I came online with you said exactly that. You have so many people in the background hoping that they hear more from you. Hence why this discussion had to happen. And I hope you do more of them. I know that you said that you want to do your podcast, but you're wanting to do something that resonates, something that feels right to you, which I absolutely understand. This podcast for me has been in the making. I've done other discussions online, but actually, holding a discussion with somebody that I've never ever spoken to before. So, in this way, it was, well, to give you an idea, I wanted to talk about my experiences because I used to have a shop. I wanted to really dig deeper and talk about just the everyday happenings of being people, but it was trying to find a way for it to connect. And I don't know I don't know how many of my customers will listen to this. I hope that they do because I know that they'll connect with it. However, you gave me that push. You kind of, if there was anyone I was going to speak to, then it was going to be the person that had led, quadruple since your video has been on my page, and just connecting and speaking to people in the comments and stuff like that. It's really stoked a passion in me that I haven't felt come alive in a long time. And I'm really grateful to you for that. So yeah, you've got a lot of people that are in the background saying this guy needs to talk more. So I really, really pray that you do. I mean, on that note, what has your family said? I know that you said people started calling you and being like,
My family didn't believe me when I told them that had gone viral. My family still doesn't understand, like, what Instagram really is.
mhm,
They don't understand that you can make money on TikTok. They legitimately don't know that advertisers pay to be on things.
mhm.
They are very much so like, if anything's going on in the world, Fox News will tell us.
So are they very old school? Because you said that you didn't have any platforms before this all started happening. You had a TikTok, which was like a few of your personal friends, but you weren't really big into social media yourself. Am I right in saying so?
Not the way a lot of people are. I didn't have an Instagram. When Instagram first came out and it was all like people posting pictures of food, I was like, I know what food looks like.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
what? And then I'm from the greater Philadelphia area, so there's plenty of good restaurants I can go to. Everything's just a quick Google search away. And then the keeping up with the rat race and seeing everybody's nice shiny things, it never really impressed me. Up until the last couple of years even, I was just like, jeans and a t-shirt is good enough. So it's not until really the last 2 years that I've started finding my own sense of style even. And now, like, I see somebody in a nice outfit online, I'm like, oh, I wonder where they got that. But it's never really been my thing. I've been on a couple of different gaming things over the years, forums, websites like that are, I guess, technically social media, but they're directed towards a topic instead of just in general.
Yeah. And saying
Um,
that, you've got quite a few people that absolutely love what you're wearing in that video. You said you were preparing to go on a fishing trip because it's so weird how everybody noticed. Like some people like, oh, he's wearing glasses, but he's got sunglasses on. It's not like people were literally noticing everything about you in that video. It's so
yep,
wild to me.
I picked up those sunglasses because I thought they matched that outfit and they fit over top of my glasses, which is the more important part, so I can see while not being blinded by the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had a fishing trip with my dad and little brother the next day to celebrate Memorial Day.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, hopefully this any questions anybody has, we're ticking them off one by one because yeah, everybody had something to say about something, and I've got a couple of the questions that people ask, so I'm gonna come to those shortly. So when I was listening to your podcast with the Canna Writer, you and I didn't even know anything about cannabis and that type of thing. So that was really interesting to listen to. One of the assumptions that people made, and you've probably seen it in the comments, was that, you must have been smoking, you must have been on mushrooms. So can I ask the question, were you under the influence that day? Was it just a normal day? If someone talks to you, is that the type of thing that you would just come out
Um,
with? Go
as
for it.
far as like what I was on, a Red Bull, that's it. For me, cannabis and cannabinoids I'll rephrase. Anything that's a focus on THC, which is more of the mental high,
Hmm.
is a social thing. I'm at a party with some friends, there's some drinks going around, somebody has something lit. I'll take a couple puffs and pass it around. I'm standing in the circle with everyone. It's very much so a matter of presence, maybe a little bit to take the edge off, but in my day to day life, I'm not a user.
Yeah. And is that
Like,
because you said on one of the different discussions that you grew up around it, you're not really phased by it, like it's something that you've always known, so it's just there if you decide that you'd like to partake.
yep, and that's
Brilliant.
really all it is. Like, another thing that I try very hard not to do is to associate anything with negative feelings, right? Some people
Hmm.
will have a rough day at work and say, I need a drink.
Hmm.
I'll have a rough day and say, I want a drink, and purposely not grab one because I don't want to associate anything that could cause damage to me with trying to feel better.
My gosh, that is so important as well. That
Because
in this, go for it.
I
Carry on.
feel
Sorry.
like it can very easily spiral out of control. You know, you have a bad day, you want one to take the edge off. You have a worse day, well, now I need two. Well, now
Hmm.
that worst day becomes your normal day. Now every time you have a bad day or something's wrong, it becomes your comfort thing. And anything can be that comfort thing for you. Anything can be what takes you out of that mood. It's about your association with it, not the thing itself. You can see it with a lot of different, I want to say, types of alcoholics, right?
Hmm.
There's some people that get only drink and they get to have a really good time drinking. Other people drink and they really get down in the dumps. And the drink itself isn't what's making them that way. It's kind of removing some of their inhibitors where now things are coming out that maybe they wouldn't normally. So by associating something that can cause damage with your bad mood, you're going to crave that every time you're in a bad mood. And we remember the bad moods naturally better than we do the good ones. So I don't want to link those two things together.
So true, so true. And what I think isn't really noticed is that social media can also be one of those escapisms. So it's like, oh, I'm not that great. I'm not feeling that great. I'm not in the best moods. Let me just get my phone out. And then what should be like a 5 minute scroll can turn into a 5 hour scroll very, very easily. And then you have this thing where you're seeing everybody else enjoying their lives, everybody's happy, and then you've sunken into depression because you're thinking, why am I not achieving this? Why am I not doing this? So again, why it's so important, I feel, to
To
use
to
platforms.
anybody that uses social media and says, "Why aren't I that way?" always, always, always remember they're not showing you those bad times. When
Hmm.
you're feeling bad, when you're walking down the street and the bus splashes you and now your eyeliner's running and your outfit's ruined, you are not whipping out your phone and going, let me put this on Instagram. Unless you are already a content creator and you already have a following and you've reached the point where it kind of doesn't matter what you post, you're not putting that out there because it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah.
People don't like to share the negative things. No, you
Hmm.
want to share the good things.
Hmm.
You want to share the joy and the laughter. And so just
Yeah.
keep in mind that everybody has bad days. Everybody. When you're
Absolutely.
scrolling down social media, it's designed to keep you engaged and to show you the positive. That's a big part of why I refuse to take down the one post that I have with me in the crop top.
Hmm.
That got a lot of hate on it. And I refused to take it down. That outfit did not look good on me, but I tried. And everybody deserves to see that I tried. It didn't work, but I tried.